Il était une fois, dans le monde fabuleux de nos rêves, deux amis, Léon et Jacques. Les deux amis adoraient jouer ensemble toutes les nuits, mais ils n'habitaient pas à côté. Leur maison était séparée par un autre monde, le monde des cauchemars. Le monde des cauchemars était plein de monstres. Chaque monstre vivait dans sa petite case. Un jour, Gru-Gru, un petit diable du monde des cauchemars, décida de s'amuser différemment. Et tous les jours, il allait changer la forme de son monde. De cette façon, les deux amis auront plus de mal à se retrouver. Le conte de Léon et Jacques s'inscrit dans une séquence de géométrie au cycle 3. En effet, les notions d'aire et de périmètre seront travaillées. Lors de la lecture du conte, on va amener les enfants à travailler sur les différentes représentations d'une aire. En effet, dans le conte, on donne certaines contraintes, notamment une aire de 24 carreaux et également un périmètre qui doit être le plus petit possible.
Monsieur 1 habitait dans une maison qui n'avait qu'une seule porte et une seule fenêtre. Dans son jardin se trouvait un seul arbre et une seule fleur. Dans son salon, qui ne se composait que d'un fauteuil, un livre, une table, une chaise et un tableau, Monsieur 1 se sentait seul. Très seul. Alors une nuit, Monsieur 1 marcha pendant longtemps, quand il tomba sur une drôle de machine. Elle s'appelait calculatrice. « J'ai une idée » cria-t-elle. « Il te suffit de m'utiliser pour te créer des amis. Te vois-tu sur mes touches ? Très bien. Alors appuie dessus. » Incroyable. Quelque chose s'était inscrit sur l'écran. Il y a deux parcours potentiels dans ce livre. Un premier parcours où les élèves ont leur calculatrice, donc ils vont pouvoir répondre aux bandes de questions qui sont mises dans le conte, et ça va vraiment leur permettre de se familiariser avec l'outil. Et un deuxième parcours, qui est si les élèves n'ont pas la calculatrice, mais avec l'enseignant, on va quand même guider pour que les deux parcours soient complémentaires.
So the first intention was to deal with creativity, because students whose aim is to become teacher for primary school can be in the situation one day where they will have to use some creativity to invent some stories, some pictures, and so this year is an experiment in this way. Why creativity? Because in order to teach in a convenient way a math notion, or in order to introduce to the idea of a math notion that maybe will be studied later in some years, you can have the idea of putting some emotion behind the object. You see, if, for example, you want to speak about the distance between 2 points, you could put one figure on the first point and another figure on the second point, and they are longing for reaching each other because they're friends, for example, and there is a difficulty because the distance is long, or little devil is trying to make this distance bigger, so they are tired to working one to each other. They are stressed because maybe next night the little devil will make this distance even bigger. And you see, you put some emotions on one math notion, which is in this example the distance between 2 points, and that's the aim also of this project of conte mathématique. In English we could say mathematical tales. Some stuff exists, mathematical books for children that telling math story for children, and so it was also the occasion of knowing better what still exists, but the pictures, the stories you have watched and you are going to watch in this presentation have all been created from nothing. So there were 5, so it's a PPPE course, it's a French experiment. We can say it's an experiment of the south of France because the way the University of Pau and the Lycée Barthou have wanted to work on this project from PPPE is somewhat original. So it means PPPE means students who want to become a teacher for primary school normally must just have a L3 of anything and then pass the exam. But in this case, they can start from L1 in parallel of their courses, math applied license, for example, or literature license. In parallel, they have some days in the week where they just help younger students dealing with their own maths, or learn themselves the didactic fields, how to teach maths, or activities like that prepare them to their future job. So it was all along the year 2023, 2024. We have met 15 times. The 5 students were volunteer. We hope to have more students next year. So we had to, we just had a white blank paper and we had to create something. So the first idea was to have a box where you have little papers, and on each paper it's written an imaginary concept. For example, traveling on the clouds, meeting an ogre, the mystic wolf, the legendary history of an ant, things like that you can find in cartoons or books from youth. And in the box there were also some little papers which elements of the program. So using rule, make calculation to estimate a geometric measure, using the calculator, what is a perimeter, and things like that. So the students were invited to draw one paper in each of the 2 boxes and make a story from both. For example, if you had drawn the fabulous butterfly and the idea how to build symmetry, it's quite obvious, you see, because the butterfly is still fast on archetype of the symmetry. Of course, the combination was not so simple because they had drawn in 2 separate boxes. So the first ideas were, I list them. So for the 5 students, so Aurélie, that you heard, whom you heard in the video. So the imaginary idea was a tower with, it was inspired by me from the last animated film on Miyazaki. So a tower and the birds coming at the upper windows each evening, and the boy at the door of the first floor each evening, and they want to meet at the middle of the tower to play together. And the mathematical idea was distance. So that was very good. That fitted very good together. And the first idea of Aurélie was, the boy and the bird want to meet, and it's quite stressing and tiring because a little devil changes not the shape but the height of the tower. That was the first idea, which has changed, as you saw. For Thea is a history of a legendary animal or whatever you want. So she has personified the number 1, so Mr. 1, and also the use of the calculator. So the first idea of Thea that she reached to the end was that Mr. 1 is feeling alone, and with calculatrice he's finding some friends, creating Mr. 2 from himself, pressing himself and the plus and himself, something like that. But an idea is not sufficient to create a good story from one side, and from other side to create something that has didactic interest. But I just, for example, list the third idea and you will see. For Roman, it was traveling on the clouds and the idea of symmetry. You see, she had not drawn on the first step the butterfly. So she has in her mind the history of a little man whose shape would be totally symmetric. The arms, the legs, the face. And he falls from the cloud on which he is traveling and he loses in symmetry as falling on the ground. For Laura, it was the story of the mute storyteller who has lost his words, and also the use of the number 0. So it could have been done something with the idea of nothing, you see, the idea of no words, the idea of silence, but it was not possible so Laura, with our help, did not find the right direction. So she created something totally different. And Luca, it was the story of meeting an ogre, and the concept was calculate to guess a measure. So she invented the story where an ogre is taking 4 children and feeding them, and we have to calculate how much they have been fed, how much they have eaten during a certain lapse of time, and at the end, if the children are fat enough, if they have been fed enough, they are going to be eaten by the ogre. So a very horrible story. And so we had some difficulties, as I said, because an idea is not sufficient to make a good story, but also the most important is not sufficient to have a didactic reflection. So already, for example, the tower, the bird, and the boy. So what is the problematic exactly? How the height of the tower is changed every evening? What are the solutions founded by the children? What is the mathematic reflection? For Thea, so Mr. 1 is creating friend Mr. 2, for example, with the calculator, and maybe Mr. 3, and so what? What's happening, and what do the children learn, except the way that a calculator exists? So in the video, you have maybe seen at the end that she has found a problematic, and I will explain which. For Roman, okay, losing the symmetry, but the question was, for example, for her, what do the pupils still know? Do they know an intuitive way of symmetric that with binding paper? Do they know nothing about symmetry? For Laura, the problem was too many ideas, and for Luca, was to make more precise the way that we calculate if the children have been fed enough. And so we have worked with 3 didacticians, and these didacticians has given the questions I explained to you in this video. And for example, for Thea, which Mr. 1, after the discussion with the didacticians, Thea had the idea that too many friends are created. And Mr. 3, Mr. 4, Mr. 10, Mr. 24, and there are too many friends. And so the aim is now how to repair it, how to come back in the calculus. For example, here we guess that Mr. 1 has pressed on the calculator from Mr. 2 that were still created. He has pressed plus 6 multiplied by 3. And so with the children, we are going to try from 24. What's happening if we make minus 6 and divide it by 3 in this order, and so we cannot reach 2. And so we have to make the reverse calculus in the reverse order. And so that's a discovery of, the principle of an equation, going back in the calculus. So that's the didactic concept of Thea, starting from Mr. 1. You see, so we had some concepts for the beginning, and I have moved. And from a first frame that was given, a first constraint, we have moved to another one. For Roman with the butterfly, so the idea was, okay, they know the symmetry by binding a paper, so an intuitive way of symmetry. And now I'm going to teach them how to create symmetry with a rule and with right angles. and with reporting the measure on the left and on the right, and the story is a context for this. So the children are going to make some geometric constructions of symmetries, but they are going to write the story doing this. They are going to prepare themselves the butterfly I'm going to draw on a paper with a lapse of symmetry, and I give them, and they're going to construct precisely with the tools what symmetry is. And for Roman, for example, she has a switch from the tower to the monster's land, so in 2 dimensions, and so we have a rectangle with fixed area, because the area is the number of squares, and the number of squares is the number of monsters, because each monster lives in a square. And so the little devil is changing the shape, always keeping this constraint of an area equal to, I think, 24. And so the children are invited to invent other shapes than rectangles, and to see if really there is one shape that minimizes the perimeter. Also, for Roman, for example, we had to be coherent with the story, because okay, the 2 boys want to reach each other. One is living here and the other on the other corner. Is it not dangerous to walk just at the frontier of a country of monsters? So she had to invent that, for example, the country of monsters is high on a little mountain, and so the path to meet each other is on the beach, for example, and so there is no danger walking along the frontier of the country. So a lot of things like that. And so after these things were fixed and the story was written, we had 3 good experiences. So the first one is to create the video in which from which I took some extracts that you have seen on the beginning of this video. And so that was an adventure you saw in the video service of the University of Pau. Not moving, looking, staring to the camera, learning to use the the text that is displayed here behind the glass of the camera, and so we have found a very, very extraordinary illustrator that made with colors all the pictures you have seen. So the students have made the drafts of course of these pictures, but the illustrator has finished them and put the colors, and that is really wonderful for us. And so the book with the 5 stories and the didactic reflection is going to be at the time I make this video in the beginning of September 2024, and maybe in 1 month, maybe or a couple of months, we will have the book, so the students can use this book in their classes when they will be teacher. And so for the next year, we would like to have more students, maybe not volunteer, maybe they could get a mark from this work, and makes a work more regular with the didacticians, the video maker, the illustrator, and voila. So this was this year a prototype, and we are very happy with the result. It was a good experiment for the students too, and we hope maybe we can go further in this project.